This is the Roller Coaster Podcast, and I'm your host, Lucy Q. Life is a wild ride. It has twists and turns. It's scary, exciting, and downright fun. So throw your head back, arms in the air, and come along with me for the ride.
Life is like a roller coaster, baby, baby. I wanna ride.
Although my kids are 19 and 22, I still remember those early months of parenthood. Honestly, I felt so overwhelmed and lost, but didn't want to admit that I needed help. I was disconnected and alone. Remember, that was pre-internet. But even with all of today's resources, new parents can still get overwhelmed. Joining me today is Amber Trueblood, licensed family therapist and author of Stretch Marks. Hi, Amber.
Hi, Lucy. Thank you so much for having me on today. I'm excited to chat with you.
So this is, I still remember those early days with my kids. I felt so incompetent. I at first was surprised they let me leave the hospital.
Right?
And I think after about a month, I was like, can I come back?
I know. I don't understand when people are like in a rush to get out. I was like, can I just stay another couple nights? Like, please.
And I was like, I had a C-section. So I'm in Canada, and I think we were allowed 4 days in hospital when you have a baby. So the first time I had a C-section, I wasn't expecting it, and a baby, and I was afraid to go home because here I was thinking that I was in this safe environment that they knew how to take care of my baby. But that's not really the case.
Well, and it really is unfortunate because I think as women, in the past and in many like tribal cultures, there's very much a community that surrounds you when you bring a new baby home, or into the world. And we've just in our modern life, especially in the US and Canada, we've lost a lot of that, And so we assume, okay, well, I must be able to do this on my own somehow. And then when you have those feelings of uncertainty and the feelings of overwhelm and like you're not doing it right and you're making mistakes and your baby doesn't like you, or your baby doesn't want to drink, and all of these various self-judgments and fears just come crashing down on so many of us. And then, like you said, we mentioned the internet, then people, you're up in the middle of the night, right? You're looking at Instagram, you're seeing all these feeds of all these happy babies. And I am happy to see that seems to be shifting a little bit more and more. So I see very popular, influencers or bloggers that are talking vulnerably and honestly about the struggles and about, yes, you can love being a mom and also be really, really, really sad or angry or upset or anxious, that those two things can both be true simultaneously. Doesn't mean that you're not grateful to be a mother or that you don't love aspects of it. It's not all or nothing. And I think that's something that we can continue to talk about, right?
And I think that point of vulnerability, I think that's it's missing globally in everything, but in particular when it comes to who we are as women and mothers, there always seems to be this illusion that we're living up to. For me, it was growing up watching, all of the 80s sitcoms where there was always this, this strong mom, whether she worked outside the home or she was at home with the kids. It painted this picture of parenthood or womanhood that when you sort of get to real life, you're like, well, what the hell happened here? You're like, where's Mrs. Cunningham? And, what are we doing? And now it's probably gotten better because the vulnerability conversation is out there, but I can still see how new parents would feel the overwhelm with just what they're seeing on social media, because all you're getting is that single second where the kid looks cute and is smiling. It's not showing the 2 hours of crap you had to go through to get them in that dress.
Right. Or the mom's in a bikini holding a tiny toddler. And I'm like, So
Oh
yeah.
yeah, don't even get me started on the bodies. Like,
Right? No, it is difficult. And I think that the more we can be vulnerable. So in my book, I talk about something called Kenzugi. And now people are starting to hear about it more. And I've seen a couple of books where that's the title, which is very cool. But one of the chapters is called Kenzugi Yourself. And Kenzugi is that, you've probably seen it, it's that Japanese art form where they take broken vases or bowls or beautiful
okay,
pottery that's been
yes.
broken, and they put it back together with glue that's laced with powdered gold, so that all the breakages, all the cracks are highlighted. They're not hidden, they're highlighted. And as a result, the piece of pottery is deemed more beautiful, more valuable than before, by showing like, hey, this is a weakness that we can either hide or we can just wear on our sleeves and embrace. And it can make you more beautiful. And this works for people, because truly the most loved, whether it's a celebrity or it's a sports star or anybody, is when you really feel you know them, because you know their imperfections. You know that they also are a real human, that they also feel pain, that they also make mistakes. And that's what makes people really attracted to you, like, because we see that in ourselves, right? We want to know that you're not perfect, and that makes us feel closer to you. And so but that works whether or not you're a celebrity or a famous rock star or a famous athlete, right? When you come into a room or come into an office and you're not trying to act like you're perfect, because you're not, right? Then people will naturally be more drawn to you. Now, I always have to say, like, at the same time, this is not the same as somebody who talks about their imperfections all the time and talks about and just like hones in on that. And that's 100% of their dialogue is what's wrong with them. Oh, I'm always late. Oh, I'm terrible about this. Blah, blah, blah. That's the other side of the spectrum. So it's one thing to own it and show up and say, you know what? I was a hot mess this morning. I totally was not on time. And I'm so sorry, guys. I'm here now. Let's focus forward. That's a very different way to show up to a meeting than to either pretend that nothing went wrong and you're totally, blaming everybody else, or that, or to just go on and on and on and on about your mistakes, what you see as your fault, so to speak. So Kenzugi Yourself is about owning those weaknesses and, wearing them on your sleeve, and then using that to move forward. Because if we spend a lot of time focused on hiding our mistakes, pretending everything's fine, first of all, it doesn't sit well with most of us. And second of all, like, we don't have time and energy to waste on stuff like that. So instead, let's own it. Yeah, you know what? I screwed up. And then as a parent, like, what a gift you're giving to your kids to model that, right? How many of our kids are having anxiety and insecurities?
Yeah, and for sure, and it's something I've been tackling myself. I'm 48, and I'm only just learning how to actually admit and ask for help, because I've always had this wall that I put up of, I got this, I'm strong, I'm a redheaded Taurus, I got it all together, I'm tough. And part of the reason why that wall existed is from my own insecurities. And people mistook that fake wall for confidence. And when I start being a little bit more vulnerable and I'm like, no, I was that hot mess behind the scenes, people are like, wait, what? What are you saying? But I think there's still that element of mom shaming out there when people are vulnerable. And I saw this with, it was, Pink, the singer.
Mm-hmm.
She did a post, it was a couple of years ago, and I think her husband took the picture because she was sitting on the kitchen floor with the kid and she was heating up a bottle in the microwave. And, her comment was something about exhaustion and what have you. And people started to trash her, saying, oh, yeah, you probably have 3 nannies and all of this. And she's like, I don't have any nannies. I'm a mom just like the rest of you. So there's still, I can see why people still have that fear of being vulnerable.
Right. I get that. And I think it's always, especially if you've been surrounded with people like that, then it's very scary. And I get it that you don't want to reach out and you don't want to say, hey, I'm not okay. Like when you said asking for help, I kind of got the chills when you said that, because I think it's really, it's important. But like you said, you want to do it in a safe place, so maybe just posting something, it does create, depending on who's on your feed. Like I have really cleaned up my feed. So literally, like there could be the most terrible thing happening on the planet and it doesn't even show up on my feed. My feed is like butterflies and like all of these positive, it's super clean. But if you don't have something like that, then that's not a safe place to share it, right? So knowing whom you can share those types of things with that are going to give you that type of attention. And if you don't, well, let's talk later. Later, I have a mindset idea for if you really feel like you don't have anybody in your life that's safe to say, hey, I call it like raising the right white flag. Like I've surrendered. Like I am not okay. I need help. I don't even know what it is yet, but I need some help. And sometimes it's those women, like you said, the redheaded Taurus, it's those that have, to the outside world, people probably thought, oh my gosh, like you're already handling so much more than I could handle. Like I already don't know how you do it. So it's hard for those people to see that everybody has a point at which they're going to lose their mind. We all have our limits. And so I remember being at a point when I have 4 boys and they're all within like 5 years and 5.5 years apart, which mathematically I don't understand because I don't have twins. So sometimes I go back and say like, how did that happen? Because I did it on each time. It was like, oh, I think, anyway. So, but still, it seems amazing to me that it actually is physically possible. But I think back to those years, and my husband had a job where he had to travel a lot, and so or just work really, really long days. And I remember thinking, how come the people around me aren't trying to help me? Like, they've got to know that I'm not okay. But you know what? They didn't, because up until now, I'd always been okay. And they just thought everything was fine. And it wasn't until literally I called and had to say to my mom, to my sister, to my friends, like, hey, by the way, like I am losing my mind, I'm not okay. I need some help. And then if you can, saying specifically, giving people specific examples of how they can help. Can you call me once a week so we can go for a walk? Can you offer to pick up something the next time you're at Rite Aid or at Target, because I'm out. This was like, pre Instacart and, Amazon
Free
and
everything. Yeah.
I remember just praying that somebody would call me next time they were at the grocery store and just asked if I needed anything, because to hustle everybody into the car to go to the grocery store to get 1 or 2 things, if that's all I was missing, was just not worth it, but it would make a big difference in my life. So asking for help, admitting to yourself that you need help first, right? And then asking for help to people who are a safe space to ask that to. Because I did have some friends literally who said, well, you have 4 kids. What did you expect? Literally, I had people say that to me.
And again, it's not what you want to hear. It goes back to mom shaming.
Was not helpful. Not helpful.
You don't even have to have kids or be a parent to be overwhelmed in your life. I mean, like I said, my kids are adults, but there's still things that I encounter where I'm like, whoa, this is a lot. And I said that to my husband the other day. I recently took the podcast from being 1 episode a week to being 5 episodes a week. And I got through my first week and I'm like, whoa, I don't know what I was thinking. That was a lot more than I thought. And he's like, well, be careful, you're taking care of you. Because again, it's taken me all this time to figure out what self-care is. And he's like, just make sure you're taking care of you and you're not getting overwhelmed.
Yeah. Oh, I love him.
And that's a conversation that you can have after 30 years of marriage,
Yeah.
because back when we had our kids, I couldn't even admit to my husband that I was overwhelmed, exhausted, and I didn't know what I was doing. And then if he did take over with the baby, I felt like I was like the shittiest mom out there because I can't
Ugh.
take care of my own baby. So we do this in our own heads, whether we have kids at home or whether we're taking on a new project at work. We always have those little, I call it the itty bitty shitty committee, yapping in our heads.
It's so true. And it's not helping us, and it's not helping our project or our kids or our work, future in our business. It really is not serving any positive purpose, but sometimes it's hard to get out of that zone. I'd love to give some tips for that.
Oh, absolutely.
So and I know you mentioned self-care. And so we could talk about like the difference between true self-care and surface self-care too. But for a tip, when you're having that kind of negative self-judgment spiral in your mind, when you're just, say you're in the shower or you're on a walk or you're trying to go to sleep and your brain is just beating yourself up. Why couldn't I do this? What made me think what, and you're just asking all these questions, so sometimes, I love meditation and visualization and gratitude journals and all of those things. And there is a time and a place when those are extremely, really, really, really powerful. But sometimes when they're in these negative thought spirals, man, it's just tough to go from there all the way to like really feeling gratitude and floating around, like you're just on the clouds. Like that's a big jump. So sometimes what's happening in our brain literally is there's an overactive part of our brain that's just cycling, and your brain is basically not functioning fully. And so in order for you to get from there to the state of gratitude and really looking at things in a more balanced, more realistic, frankly, way, sometimes we need a brain hack. So I love these because they're free. You can do them anywhere and there's no side effects, and they're super easy and simple to do. So one of them is as simple as so you've probably heard that when you smile, your brain feels the muscles that you're using to smile, and it literally releases serotonin and positive, neurochemicals in your brain. Like, oh, she's happy. We're gonna do this. And same thing when you frown or you have, this droopy, tensed up face, or you're gritting your teeth and things like that. So you can literally get either, and I say there's always one of these depending on what room you are in the house. There's always a toothbrush, a spoon, or a pen, pretty much wherever you are in your house. Okay. So you grab one of those, and if it's not too filthy, you put it in your mouth crosswise in your teeth like this. Okay. So as if you're smiling. It doesn't even have to look like a real smile, but it's a way to hack your brain and trick your brain into releasing those chemicals that then counter the negative chemicals that you have going already. And so even if you're not feeling it, but you just go like this, you just smile, 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 and that will help. There's something called a cross-lateral movement. So this is any movement where it gets your right and left hemispheres communicating. So anything that crosses the midline of your body. So you can take one hand flat and take your other hand, and you kind of karate chop across your palm, and you do it 6 times really fast. And this is Dr. Joy Martina. I always have to give her props for this because she's the first one that told me about this, and I started using it. And it's a genius way, especially if you have to flip your mood quickly. Something annoying just happened, and then you have to get on a podcast call, and you're like, okay, great. I have to pretend like I'm not super annoyed at this thing that just happened. And you're trying to focus, but you're still thinking about it. This is like a great tool for that. Or if you have to go into a parent teacher conference, but you just had this really aggravating conversation with your boss, or you just got a really, sad or frustrating email, and then you have to go do something else. So when you want to switch modes, so you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then you switch hands and karate chop the other hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You do it as quickly as possible. 6. I can't talk and do it at the same time because my brain is not that effective. And then you breathe deeply, slowly in and out. And I'll tell you, it seems like magic, but really what's happening is it's facilitating the communication between your right and left hemispheres. And then it takes all of this overactivity that's happening in one part of your brain and it disperses it. And, you know, you hear about like the negativity bias. I mean, like, as humans, we're wired to notice what's not working, notice what is a possible threat in our environment, right? And we hear about this a lot because it's for our survival, right? That's how we survive, is by not yes, it's great to notice all of the trees and this, but but if we see some strange movement and we think we hear a rattlesnake on the floor, we really need our bodies to hone in on that and see if that's a potential threat. Obviously, with modern day humans, that has, it doesn't always serve us, right? So because of that, for instance, I use the example, like say do you have any parts of your body that are hurting right now, that are sore?
Yes.
Tell me one.
My lower back.
Okay, so your lower back.
Yeah.
So, it's so easy, especially if it's back pain. Oh my gosh, because then it hurts when you're laying down. It hurts when you're sitting too long. It hurts when you're walking. It hurts when you try to do everything. But it's not like you spend equal amount of time thinking about, well, I'm so glad this wrist feels good. And I'm so glad my tricep isn't sore and my neck feels great. You don't spend the equal amount of time focusing on all the 260 parts of your body that are working well. You focus disproportionately on the part that's causing you pain because you're human. And that's how we're wired to do that. But when it comes to the outside world and anxiety, things that would provoke anxiety or overwhelm, it doesn't always serve us to spend 90% of our attention focused on what's not working, what's causing us pain. So we have to purposefully do things like a gratitude journal or mindfulness exercises to focus ourselves on purpose on things that are going well, things that we do enjoy, people we do love in our life. Like you mentioned, the people who are not supportive, the mom shamers. Okay, great. So there's one or two crappy friends, one or two people are going to say dumb things on the internet. Okay, I'm going to purposefully focus. Like, for instance, I'll give you a perfect example. You get Amazon reviews for your books. I have all 5-star reviews. I got 1 4-star review. And of course, what do?
You focus on the 4-star.
I am looking like crazy to figure out, what did they write? Why is it 4 stars? Why didn't they give me 5 stars? And then I can't find it. Amazon says it doesn't exist. So then I'm like, well, what? And I was like, why are you spending any time on this? Who cares? And then the more attention, your book or your podcast or anybody gets, the more you're going to attract all kinds of different responses. So I'm thinking, holy crap, Amber, if you can't handle 1 4-star review, like, what are you going to do when people start saying, well, this is a load of crap, this is a terrible book, you got to be prepared for that and not spend all your time focusing on that. And so, but because this is human and this is how we're wired, we have to find strategies and practices and tricks that help us to manually move from that negativity bias to focusing on the good, focusing on what is working, focusing on what we want to do differently. Okay, well, I don't want to do that again. So what am I going to try differently tomorrow? Instead of beating myself up for not exercising yesterday, when I told myself all day I was going to exercise and instead I'm going to say, okay, what am I doing right now for the next 15 minutes? All right, let's get up and do some jumping jacks. Like, do what you can now, but if you're busy focusing and beating yourself up for the past, then you can't change anything moving forward. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And because whenever you're focused on the negative, those things that you're not doing, instead of focusing on on all the good, you're creating a roadblock in your own mindset.
Yeah.
You're not, like you said, focusing on everything that you're doing good. And that's where, when you get stuck on constantly looking at the negative, what's not going right, what's not working, you focus on, those few things. That's when you get stuck into anxiety and depression.
Yeah. Yeah. I always say, when you mentioned overwhelm at the beginning, and for me, overwhelm is not necessarily that you have 400 things on your to-do list. Okay. It's if say you have 400 things on your to-do list, which is not an effective, efficient way of having a to-do list, but that's a whole nother podcast, right? But say you do, if those 400 or if say 375 of those things are really, really aligned with stuff that's important to you, that you value, that you enjoy doing, that are aligned with your priorities, your values, your lifestyle, then that is more exciting. It tends to more create energy and excitement, even if you're busy. So it's not necessarily the busyness that makes us feel overwhelmed. It's what you're busy with. Is it aligned with what's important to you? If you're busy with a bunch of stuff that you don't care about, is not important to you, you don't value it, then that's when the frustration and the overwhelm come. Because my guess is, anybody listening, there's a time in your life when you've been super busy and it's been really, really fun. Like, because you're doing something that you love, that's important to you, or maybe you don't even love doing it, but you know it's going to be so helpful to the community or the group that you're doing it for, that it's very, very rewarding. So, but if you're busy doing things that you don't like, that you don't value, that's when you see the resentment and the frustration and the overwhelm. So I would encourage people not to maybe look so much at doing less of anything, but can you align what you are doing with what's important to you more often? Because obviously not every single thing I do is like, oh, I can't stand cooking, I can't stand cleaning,
No, I'm with you. And that's
and-
it, is that for me, it's those moments of flow when you're working on a task and the whole concept of time disappears.
Mhm.
That's when you know that you're working on those things that align with you. But
Yes.
if I'm having to go to a grocery store or think about what's for dinner, two of the things that I despise the most,
Mhm.
it's overwhelming. I mean,
Yeah.
come on. It's not that big of a deal. What are we going to have for dinner? It's not that big of a
Mhm.
crisis.
Yeah.
But it
But one
is when you've planned it for the
right.
7,000th time. And
Exactly. And so one of the things that people will say is, well, I can't stop making dinner. I can't stop eating food. I can't stop going to the grocery store. I'm not in a financial position to just pay somebody to do all of those things, or I don't want to, because they're not going to get the right things, or for whatever reason. Then I will say, if you add something to your day, or maybe 2 times a week, that's a 10 out of 10 as far as what you love to do. Maybe that's a dance class. Maybe that's a hike. Maybe that's writing in your journal with a cozy cup of tea, at night, whatever it is. And this is where we can circle back to a true self-care, so something that really fuels you. What you'll find then is when you add that to your day, and this was for me, I mentioned dance class because that's what it was for me when I turned 40. I'm also at 40. I'm either 46 or 47. I keep forgetting, but I think I'm going to be 47. But anyway, is I started going to dance classes twice a week. And I found that on those days, and even sometimes the few days afterwards, I would come home, make dinner, no problem. No hostility, no like seething, like doing this again. Oh my gosh, like before when I didn't have anything that was for myself, that was 10 out of 10 on my like self-fueling happiness scale, then everything else was like a 0 or a 1. But when I added a few things that were 9s or 10s to my week, then I found those things that used to drive me nuts and add a lot of resentment to my life suddenly became neutral. It wasn't like I was ever going to be like, this is so fun, I now love cooking. It wasn't that, but it was neutral. It got neutralized. And I thought, oh, everything I do has to be a 9 or a 10 in order for me to like have a fulfilling, happy life. But it really doesn't work that way. It's awesome because you can actually hack it by adding just a couple things. And then you find it takes kind of all of the other things and it raises them up. Sorry, I'm using my hands a lot, which people can't hear. So sorry about that. Add your own hand movements in your head to what I'm saying.
yeah, and that's it, is that, it's one of the mistakes that I've made for, most of the time that the kids were young, is that I didn't even understand what self-care was. I always thought it was, well, you go get a pedicure or something,
Right.
which those are nice things.
Right.
It's a mental break, but it's not fulfilling.
Yeah.
in that sense. It's not really those moments when you're like, man, that was awesome. And I think, whether you are a parent or, you're single, married, whatever, you still need to find those moments of self-care. And
And
you
they're
need to
different for
be able
everybody.
to disconnect and reconnect with your inner authentic self.
Right. And Lucy, this like it's different for everybody, right? The same thing that is really true self-care for you is going to be different than it is for somebody else. So, and it's true self-care for you when, exactly like what you said, when the impact of that experience is lasting, when it kind of cascades, when it dominoes throughout the rest of the day and into the next day. That's true self-care. Surface self-care is super pleasant while you're doing it. It's great. Like, it's not a bad thing. Like you said, like a pedicure is kind of it's a good example for surface self-care. It's pleasant. But then as soon as you come back home and the house is a disaster and the phone is ringing off the hook and you have 27 emails and the kids are crying or whatever, all of a sudden your cortisol and adrenaline levels are back up to super high, and you're already frustrated and aggravated, maybe even more so. And this is the clincher. Sometimes you're even more aggravated because you're like, I just spent an hour. I just spent $45 on this fancy pedicure. And I came home and and you're ranting because your expectation was that you would come home, in this bliss cloud, and everything would be fine and the house would be spotless and, nobody would be fighting. So, sometimes it serves to even set ourselves up for a bigger disappointment. So true self-care is really different for everybody. And it's going to be an activity that refuels you deeply from the inside. And sometimes finding that again as a parent, like you said, we don't do it for so many years. So sometimes figuring out what the heck that is tricky. And it doesn't mean that you don't try. It means like you try different things and you see, but just like introverts versus extroverts. And during this time of quarantine, a lot of people who were introverted were like, oh, I can breathe. I don't have to deal with the pressures, the social pressures, because those are very, very depleting for introverts. Whereas extroverts were like, are you kidding me? What is happening? Like, this is not okay. And there's a panic. And so we're all very different. So you have to know and be really honest with yourself about what is refueling to you. And then, and then try it, do it, actually set yourself up to have the opportunity to bring more of that into your life every day.
So what is your book Stretch Marks about?
So the title came from, a story in the book that happens to be about one of my stretch marks, but I loved the word as a metaphor, really, because all of us, whether you have children or not, whether you're a woman or not, whether you're, a grandmother who's way past having little kids in your home, it doesn't matter. Everybody has gone through experiences that changed them, experiences where they grew, where they expanded, not only physically, but emotionally and psychologically. And we were challenged, and we've all grown and changed from those experiences. And I would argue that you're better, you're smarter, you're more experienced, you're wiser as a result of that. So to me, stretch marks are something that, that are like a badge of honor, showing, wow, I went through this hard thing and I survived it and I thrived. And even if I didn't thrive through it, I learned something. I learned something that I can use or I can teach others, and I can grow from that point forward. So stretch marks is, it's a little bit about mindset. I have something called the 5 mindsets. So it's called the Amber mindsets. That's the acronym. So A is for ask. So sometimes you don't know what you want. What's holding you up is the ask, like asking yourself, what do I even want? What will even make me happy? So then I have practical tools for trying to uncover for yourself what it is that you want. And then sometimes totally what you want, but you're stuck at the M. You don't know where to move. You don't know how to get motivated. You don't know the actual motivational tips that are going to work for you. What strategies will get you moving in that direction? And sometimes you know what you want. So you've got the ask, and you know what gets you moving. You know that you work really well with deadlines. You know, you need an accountability partner. You know how to structure yourself to get yourself moving every day, but it's still not working. Like, it's still just like something stuck. And then that's the B, and that's the belief. So sometimes you have these underlying faulty beliefs. I call them baloney beliefs, that often once you uncover them, then you're like, I don't even really believe that. How is that blocking me? And lots of times these subconscious beliefs that we have, we don't even really buy it anymore, but they're so ingrained in us, we don't even notice they're holding us back. So then in the belief chapter, I have tools for how to help uncover some beliefs that might be holding you back. And then E is elevate. So maybe you know exactly what you want. You're moving in the direction of your dreams. You've got your baloney beliefs all, dismantled. And now is kind of the fun part, where elevate is where you use tools like visualization, like meditation, like a gratitude practice to facilitate everything moving like more easily, more quickly. It kind of smooths out the path to where you're going. And then the last one is radiate, because I really do think that most humans feel better when they're helping others outside of their immediate family and community, when they're doing something that they're passionate about. So whether that's helping animals or helping the planet or helping cancer research, whatever it is that draws you, that, has like a special tug on your heart. So radiate is about taking all of those things that you've built up and now radiating that to a cause, to a community, to a problem on the planet that you specifically care about solving. And so radiate is about, how to help you and how to facilitate finding ways to radiate your genius, so to speak, out into the world. So a big part of the book is on that. And then I have some sections on like very practical tips for parenting and dealing with sibling rivalry and a bunch of the stuff that I use in my house every day, gratitude circles and things like that just help kind of create a calmer, less chaotic house. And even, I don't know if you can see these, I'm pulling something out of my ear right now for all of you listening at home. This is something I just found on the internet because I'm very sensitive to sound. And I live with 4 boys and they are musicians. I have a full acoustic drum set in my living room and one in my garage, and guitars everywhere. This is very loud in my house.
That would be, yeah.
It's very, very loud. And it's lovely. They're sweet. They're just being kids. But so I wear these things in my ears, and it just helps kind of minimize like some of the frequencies that are really crazy. And I just started wearing them, and they're helping a lot. So you do what you can, you do everything you can. That's what I try. Amber,
you've provided us some great tools and tips today. What's the best place for people to connect with you?
So my website is a good hub to reach everything. So it's just my name, ambertrueblood.com, and it's AMBERTRUEBLOOD.com. And I've got a bunch of fun free downloads on tips exactly like these. And I also have, so I have a podcast called Stretch Marks, and I have the book called Stretch Marks, and what else? YouTube channel with videos. I've got a Facebook group, but all of it you can find starting there at ambertrueblood.com. And for sure, Amazon or your local bookseller, wherever you go to find books. If you want to pick up Stretch Marks, then yeah, you can pick it up anywhere you like to buy books. Oh, and there's an Audible version. So if you just prefer to walk around listening, or driving, whatever, you can listen to it on Audible.
Perfect. Well, if you're looking at connecting with Amber, make sure you check out all of the show notes. I will have all the links in there for you. Amber, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, thank you, Lucy. It's been really fun. I appreciate your time.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Roller Coaster Podcast. Want to chat or share your ideas about today's show? Pop me an email at hello@therollercoasterpodcast.com. Don't forget to connect with me on Facebook and Instagram at The Roller Coaster Podcast. Our theme song, Roller Coaster, was performed by The Lucky Setback. Audio editing by the one and only Jeff Quigley of Quigley Creative.